Hello guys, so I've had a few requests to explain what is going on in this level and how I've done it. Some of you are pretty confused as to how it's even possible, so I'll try and explain exactly what I've done and how I've done it, and hopefully that can help you if you're going to build some complex levels. So the majority of my logic, meaning my start and finish points, I keep away from the level, just basically because I want to see where everything is and what everything is doing, and I label absolutely everything, so I know what is happening, when it's going to happen, and what sequence it's going to happen in. So on the left, I use what I call one-shot triggers, so counters basically. The reason I do that is because I know that when I trigger a piece of logic, it's going to stay triggered, it's not going to interfere with anything else. I'm not resetting timers and stopping it in any other way with XOR gates, although I've got one XOR gate here which will stop the cogs spinning. So that's how I do it. I know other people will do it in different ways, but this is the way I do it. So everything is in sequence, and every piece of logic that is triggered triggers the camera. Sometimes they will have 2 or 3 cameras on them, sometimes they will just have 1 camera on them, depending on what that piece of logic is doing. I like to keep things nice and neat, obviously, so it's not all over the place. And different bits of logic, for example, the power core lift, which is here, I'll explain that in a minute. So the power core lift will have, does have its own separate piece of logic, and up here as well, where the lift and core cameras, which are here. So these cameras are showing you what the lift is doing, and then when the cogs at the bottom, which control the power module for the roof floor retracts, that will also show the lift coming back down. So I have different bits of logic. Some of them are a bit bigger, obviously, for others, and this microchip is operating the lights that power on at the end, and then the power to the conveyor, and the control of the fans, which are in the level. Everything's obviously got its own little piece of music. That music is, it's not positioned. So obviously if you position the sound, it will play regardless of where you are in the level. So if I was over the other side of the level and I put position sound on yes, it would obviously play wherever, and no vice versa, and so on. So they're always off. Lots of wires. Obviously it looks very complicated, but to me it isn't, because I do it like this. And if you ever need to trace something back, it's only really a case of taking a wire off a board and tracing it back to where it goes. And if you label everything like I do, you'll pretty much know where one wire is going, or what piece of logic is controlling what, etc., etc. So if you name everything and label everything, you'll never go too far. That is if you're building complex bits of logic. If you look at Media Molecules levels and Sumo Digital's levels, when we got to see how they built their levels, when somebody glitched the story levels so you could go in and see them in create mode, you could see how sloppy their logic was. It was just pretty much placed here, there, and everywhere. Some people build like that, and that's fine for them if it works for them, but this is how I like to do it. So we have only a little bit of water. It isn't too much, I don't think. what do we have? So 17 on the level, so it's not really that high up. It just covers the bottom part of the logic here, so we just see it's just creeping over this floor, 4 block square here. So I think it's 3 high on the water, so the water is not really affecting the thermo that much. If I was to take the water out, the thermo wouldn't really move. So the lift, let's explain that. This was an absolute nightmare to get to work. This was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to build in Little Big Planet. I've built a lot of logic for other people's levels. A lot of my logic is in team pick levels, particularly ones that were built in the beta of Little Big Planet 2. And quite a lot in Little Big Planet 3. I think there's 11 or 12 levels that have got my logic in them. So I'm going to take this out of view in play mode, and you're going to wonder what's going on here. So this invisible material. When I built the power core, I think I posted an earlier video about it, it was way up out of the level. I was going to have the power core doing something else, and it just looked too simplified, so I decided to do it this way. And to be honest, I wished I hadn't, because this probably took me 15 or 20 hours to get right. So when I placed the power core on the lift, it was doing all sorts of stuff. It was dancing about, it was falling off the lift, it was breaking the core supports, it was just doing everything. So regardless of what I put on it, whether I put dampening chips on it, however I manipulated that, it wouldn't work. So I had to put a piece of invisible material on top of the lift, place a dampening chip on the invisible material, stick it to the lift, delete it, rewind, and then take the dampening tool, the dampening logic, off the invisible material and place no collision logic on it. So the game now thinks that this piece of invisible material is stuck to the lift with a dampening tool. Well, it isn't stuck to the lift, it's effectively floating. And if I was to grab it, you will see that it's not connected to the power core. So it's just effectively attached to the lift, but it isn't, because it's attached to this. So how I had to do that, why I had to do it, is because the pins which come out, so if I just hide them, you'll see the pins here. Now these move to engage into the core. When the core comes up into the bottom pieces here, this is where these pins will engage to. So they come out, etc, etc. But trying to get this to go up here and engage into this with a mover, the game basically just said, you're having a laugh, there's no way I'm going to do that. Because I build in squares, so the pattern of small squares, so everything is lined up exactly, so everything is completely accurate to build in within the blocks. So you would think that the game would just allow you to fit one block next to another and it not have too much hassle. The game just doesn't work like that. You have friction, you have conflict with pieces, you have pieces destroying other pieces, and it just doesn't work. But the major problem was the tubes for the core having to engage into these 4, so this 1, 2, 3 and 4. Because it's built accurately onto 4 squares, it was going back and stopping 1 block before the pipes. So I eventually got it to go back without doing this trick. but it would stop, because even though it was accurate and there was enough room for it to go, the game was saying I don't want to do that. So I did no collision on the surrounds for the pipes, which didn't help, so I took that off. So what I ended up doing is again with invisible material, place the invisible material above, put a dampening tool on it, placed it with a no collision chip on top of the pins, deleted it, rewound and put the dampening tool back on to keep it in place. So as you can see, the invisible material isn't stuck to anything and it isn't static, it's just floating there. So the game doesn't recognize that this piece is actually here. So if I just, oh god, if I just hide this, you will see that the pieces come out through the invisible material. But there's no logic on the invisible material at all. So there's not one piece of logic on that, it's just sat there. There are no collision chips on these pipes, but they can't be no collision once they engage into this, because it has to hold it. So the way I did it was to, just let me move that, oh god, was to get this piece of invisible material, which is effectively floating in the game, this piece here, comes up and lines up with this piece here. So when this core gets up to the top, let me just start the level and I'll demonstrate it. Let's do it so it doesn't trigger anything else. Let's just turn that off. So if I start the sequence off, so you can see the lift is coming up now. Those pieces, those pins at the back are going to engage into the core piece, if I haven't broken while I was messing with them. So there they go. And now the core will go backwards. And I'll show you what it looks like now it's back there. That should stop now. So everything else is going on. Well, the lift's going back down. It should stop now. The lift has gone back down. That's it now. So if we look at it now, so the invisible piece is back on the lift, even though it was up here. And the core piece has gone back on the invisible material, which is just effectively floating in the game. It's not stuck to anything, it's just floating there. So the game effectively doesn't recognize that that piece is there. That was the only way to get this to sit in that area. You see, if I copy this, it's not glued to anything, there's nothing else stuck to it. The pins are at the bottom, the core is just there, sat independently on these pieces now. Now let's go back. Which one did I turn off? One of these. No, it doesn't matter. So that's how that works. That was a pain in the arse to get that to work. A real pain in the arse. But it's the one bit I wanted to work properly more than anything. It's the whole part of the level. So this is the retractable walkway. This will be a playable part later on in the series of levels. At the minute you don't really get to do anything with this. The control room is up here. Again, this isn't really featured in the published part of this level, but You will come to this control room through this door, and this is how you will trigger this part of the level. So you will come in through that door. The level link will be in here. You will come in and you will go up the ladder, and this piece here, this control panel, has got all the logic on it. So you have the touch logic, which will change this screen. This screen will change to an R1 symbol, so the game will tell you what it wants you to do to trigger the. It doesn't like messing about when there's that much logic in the level. Let me try and stop the camera. So there is an R1 sticker under there, and once you trigger this, once you come in here, before you get to the ladder here, this screen will change to tell you what to do with this console. Once you've triggered this console here, that will start the cinematic sequence for the level. There is 103 lights in this level. They're all placed just to give the effect of, I don't know what you would really call the effect, like emergency lights or lights not being on, whatever. That's the kind of effect I wanted to give. The fans over here operate once the core's being inserted. The conveyor belt, which is down here. Again, the camera doesn't like that. The conveyor belt, which is here. Just get rid of some of that so you can see it. Is here, and all the parcels and boxes will move along the conveyor belt. This is going to be a theme throughout the levels, to have parcels and boxes moving about the levels. For the final level, which is going to be something to do with stuff moving about. I don't want to say too much yet because I haven't really decided how I'm going to do it. I've started building that level, but it's like anything else. You decide to do something and then change it halfway through. So I'm going to see how the other 3 levels go that I'm building at the minute, which is the one after this and the sequence before this to get into the control room. I'm working on that now. People have asked me why the thermo is only just over 3/4 full with this amount of complexity in the level. So something I have done for a long time is build outside of levels. So I build all my logic pieces, all my pieces, i.e. anything that's going to move, I build in a separate level. I build it, I test it again, and then I put it into another level. So I have another level which is exactly this, but it has pieces that are missing. So what I will do is I'll incorporate those pieces into that level and test it with inside that level and see what it does to the thermo. That way I'm not bringing pieces into the level affecting the thermo, so the thermo's calculating what's in the level and then deleting it and amending it, and the thermo saying, well, hang on a minute, you've already brought that in here, what are you doing with it? That's how the thermo works in this game. Sometimes you bring pieces in or you build something in the level, and the thermo just keeps it in memory regardless of what you do with it. It doesn't always do that, but it will do that with complexity like this. I think you would all probably agree that the thermo should be out of the ceiling with a level like this, but it isn't. It's just over 3/4 full because I've been careful with what I do. All the materials in the background, the materials at the side, all have curved edges that you can't see. They're obviously in the back. So the curved edges are stopping the thermo from calculating edges on square pieces. So the bits at the back that you can't see, anything that you can't see that's been built and doesn't need to be seen is deleted. But there are majority of the pieces at the back and at the sides have all got curved edges on them to keep the thermal limit down in calculating edges. this piece at the top, this bit of completely over the top complexity. This was an absolute pain in the arse to get to work properly. This piece here, this is all, well, that's one piece, two pieces, three pieces, four pieces. So it's effectively made up of four pieces. These four pieces in the build level were almost seven notches on the thermo. That's how complex this is. That's what I mean about building complexity inside of a level that you're going to publish. You really should be building it outside of the level and bringing it into a level when you're 100% happy with how it's going to work. So we can trigger this bit just to show you what happens with this piece. So this comes forward. Right, once it's forward, so these pins here will disengage from this part, so there's four of them, and they are all separate pieces of logic. So this piece is moving forward, two pistons here and two pistons on the other side. Again, this can be a pain to build logic pieces with pistons on that you're actually moving. So these pistons are obviously coming forward with that piece. So they're all separate pieces that are on the this main part in the middle here, and they come forward. To get this to work properly, I had to basically split these turning pieces at the end into three separate pieces. I'll explain why I had to do that. So you'll see here that we've got a mover there, there is a mover there, and open it up. Oh, that's a bit sloppy. Let me just sort that out. I don't like that. Oh, goodness me. You can probably tell I've terrible OCD. Everything's got to be straight. I didn't realise I'd not done that, but there we go. So, three separate movers for one piece of logic. That's probably, like, you're probably thinking, why would you have to use three separate ones for one piece of logic? Well, the game doesn't like pistons moving forward. Again, occasionally you can build something where logic, particularly pistons, have to move, so those pistons come forward, and the game just doesn't like doing it. So you have to build an item, and I've made it three separate items here, glued together at the back by sticker panel onto the main piece that is moving, and these will all move at 0.3, I think it is. There we go. So they're all moving at the same speed. If I was to turn them off and try and move this, these pistons would stay at the back. They'd end up going down here, they'd end up breaking, all sorts of stuff would happen. And because this piece here is heavier, the mover for this piece I think will be at 0.9. So that moves at a different speed because of the weight. Now you'd say, well, why don't you just change everything to 0? Again, the game doesn't like that. Sometimes I can start this sequence off and it'll be fine, I can do it again, it'll be fine, I can do it a third time, and this piece will just come flying forward, or it'll stop halfway. Again, it's just something that happens with the game. Sometimes the game just doesn't like doing it. So you have to build them all separately using different separate movers. Yes, it's a pain in the arse, but it's really the best way of making sure it works every time. So the three movers here for 1, 2, and 3 different pieces of logic. And we've got this mover here, which operates this little piece which comes up and down when the roof opens, and then obviously the mover and the logic for the large piece in the middle. So I wanted to use the chain, the winch links. I quite like the retro look on some of the logic, but getting this to line up. Some people have said, how have you made stuff line up like that, etc., etc. It's a very simple trick. I'm sure the majority of you know it. Just using a game camera, instead of using the default camera that you're using to decorate underneath stuff, just simply get your game camera out, land on there. Oh, let's try and land on there. There we go. So get the game camera out, turn the tracking off, and change the angle and zoom. So let's get as close as we can. There we go. So when the camera settles, it will be right up underneath it. So you can do whatever you want to do now with whatever you're putting up there, whatever it is you're doing, whatever you're sticking there, stickers, whatever, blah blah blah, anything that you want to put under there. If you were to try and do it without the game camera, so using the game's default camera, you'd be like, right, let's zoom in, let's try and get up there, let's have a look. And you'd be trying to manipulate stuff. And once you've grabbed it, I mean, how can you tell where it's going there? You can't. You've just got no chance. So the best way to do it is with the game camera, and that will give you a much better perspective. You can build a little piece like I have. I've got a little piece captured in my saved items down here somewhere. There's just a little platform that I stand on when I'm decorating underneath parts or doing stuff to areas where you can't get in with the normal game camera. Just an easy, quick tip to build stuff a lot easier than it should be. So yeah, so that is about it. Everything works, everything moves. These all triggers, the fans are just crawling at the minute. They're on. They will be on hologram, obviously. We can just delete stuff out. Let's have a look. So they are on a little piece of hologram, wherever it is. Is it there? There we go. So they're on hologram, and they've got the animation speed. It isn't that piece because that fan is crawling. There's another smaller piece of hologram in there that is controlling that fan. And you can see the fan is just barely moving. So when the core goes in, those fans, they will start moving. And you can see the cobwebs coming out of the fan there. Yep, the lights all change when the core goes in. Everything lights up, so these lights will light up. And then the conveyor will start moving into the bottom. I do like to make things detailed, and I like to put little bits in that just add some nice scenic effects in the level. That's how I build. This is my kind of style. I like sort of underground scientific technology type, retro type things like that. That's kind of how I build, and you'll see it in the other levels that I've started to build. There is another published level that's part of this series. So there's 2 levels at the minute published. This cinematic is published, and one of the sub-levels is published. There will be 10 altogether when it's finished. which will take a while. I'm sure you can probably understand that. So let's start it all going and let's see what happens. So the blue chips are the sound chips, the orange chips are the logic chips, the white chips are mover chips, and the red chips are specific logic like collision and material changer chips. You can see there that that piece of invisible material I was talking about, that's just floating there. The game doesn't even think that's there. Yeah, so I did do this explanation video before, but YouTube moderated it because my laptop was playing in the background with some music on, so they didn't like that. So they kindly deleted it for me. Like I say, I am happy to help anybody with anything in LittleBigPlanet3 or LittleBigPlanet2. Any creation problems you may have or anything you need any help with, I am happy to help you if you need any help. You know, there are some very, very creative people in this community, and using dreams, something else that I use as well. And oh, you can see I've messed that up because I triggered that before, but anyway, that is that. I need to turn that off. That's why that's gone funny, because I was showing you that and I left it switched on. There we go. So yeah, I hope that explains a little bit. I'm sure. Okay. So the middle area. The middle area. This was something that was here. So I had, as I was saying at the start, I had a contraption that was up here, similar to this, that was operating the core lift. But I decided that it would just be better for it to be sat on the lift, because moving it independently and then sitting it on here and asking the game to effectively do this while this was coming down from the roof, I think that would have been just a bridge too far to ask it to do that. So I compromised and I settled for having it sat there already in the level. It gives the impression that it's been taken out and it's sat there and it's not being used. I say you operate that from the control room in there. Let me just put that door back. I say I haven't done this. I haven't quite done this bit yet, and I know one of those pieces is static on that door, and it's probably the sticker. Oh, the game's paused, that's why. So yeah, you will start in there, and that will trigger the whole level off. These pieces here, just to say, I think I've explained it in a post. These are the THAC pieces. Sorry, the THEC pieces, which are these glitched out of level pieces. So out of block, well, whatever way you want to explain it. I think most of you will know what these are. These are the pieces that are in a slightly different plane to the normal blocks. So you can see that that is further back than the normal piece, and the thin piece is further back than the thick. Thick obviously because it's the same thickness as a checkpoint, and thick because it's the same thickness as Sackboy. And that's what those pieces got called. So yeah, I use a lot of these. And I build these pieces, again, outside of the level. They are made of light matter, and the game doesn't calculate these pieces. So I build them outside of the level, all of them. What I will do is I will, in the build level that I have, not the published level, I will build all these pieces to make sure they fit in that level, because the other build level I've got is a complete replica of this, and I will put them in there, and I'll note where they need to be, so I'll know that if I'm building here that it's 1 square away from that, and it's 1 square below that, and then I'll just go into my captured pieces, which are all in here. So all my bits are in here, and I'll bring them into the game and just place them, and that's the PlayStation, because I've got voice commands on. So yeah, I like to. This is just my style of building. This is how I like to build little over pieces like this, using the UV tool, which obviously changes the pattern. And I think this one is the shuttle. I think it's called shuttle piece. Is it? What's it called? Shuttle tile. That's it. So I like to use that because it's got the numbers and the letters on, and it kind of fits with the theme of this level. So yeah. Oh yeah, people were asking how I've done the pipes. The pipes are simple. The pipes are merged with a no collision tool, built outside of the area, merged together, and then brought into the area. So it gives the appearance of one solid pipe instead of two, and everything goes through to the other side. And obviously they are not stuck to anything, they're just statically hanging there, but they are through another piece because they had a no merge chip on the pieces. I placed them in the level and then deleted the logic, and the pieces will just stay there forever and a day until I delete them out. And that's how you do that. Very basic place to start because I haven't done anything with it yet. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you understand a little bit better. Those of you that have asked, those of you that watch, and I'll catch you next time.